Hi, boss. How are you? Good, how are you? Very good, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Calling the general government meeting to order, 10 o'clock. Go deviate from the agenda just a little bit. Everybody stay put now, but next meeting of the general government, I'd like everybody to sit down here in a row so I can see y'all instead of get better input that way.
We're actually
Well, okay. You probably won't get called on then. Okay, first up, I need approval of the agenda as presented. We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Okay, we approve the agenda. Next up, item 3, public comment. Do we have any public comment? This is our 3-minute section of public comment. Any public comment? We have no public comment. Move on to item 4. We have the minutes from the August 9th meeting. Any changes or additions, deletions? If not, we need approval. We have motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. We'll move on to appointments. Okay, the Agricultural Preservation Board. We all have new terms. We have current members and nobody's applied. Is there a reason for that, Mike, or just, okay? We will send out notifications and run them again next month. Jackson County Parks Board. This would be a member at large. A vacant position. We have 2 applicants. One would be Janelle Merritt, the other Dave Rusnell. Are there any nominations from the floor?
nominate.
We have Janelle Merritt. Any other nominations? Last time, any other nominations? They will send, it passes unanimously then. We got to vote on it. All in favor of Janelle Merritt? Aye. Anybody opposed? We will send Janelle Merritt to the full board. That's the Parks Board. County Board of Canvassers. We have a Republican representative and a Democrat representative. Okay, it'll be Sharon Hastings and Marla Gilpin. She will be replacing Susan Smalley. Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. That's all the appointments for today. Next up, we have the Conservation District, their semi-annual report. Good morning.
For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Lori Fitzgibbons. I'm the district manager at the Conservation District. I hope you all got my report. I'm just going to go over some of the high points. The tree sale this year, it was very successful. We sold out of everything, but we had to buy a lot of products and stuff, and we didn't have the quantity or the of customers, etc. Anyway, we got not as much money, which we're going to have to make up for by decreasing my hours for the rest of the year. But that's all right. I can.
Oh, darn, I'm sorry.
I know, I'm upset. I really am. But I've already started planning next year's. It's a never-ending process, so that whole thing is starting over again now. No-till grass grain drill rental, we planted over 205 acres this year of native grasses in Jackson County, so that's up by like 3 times of what it usually is, so that's a good thing. Project Red we were able to do this year. We did it virtually. Presenters were asked to submit a video, and the videos were compiled into one big video, and it was sent to teachers that signed up. 17 Jackson County schools signed up, which equaled to about over 1,100 students from 53 different classrooms. So that was, and we got a lot of positive feedback on that. We did do the Earth Day celebration in the park in person this year. It was a terrible, cold, rainy day in April, but we did have 150 people show up and 14 vendors participated. Our last Adopt-A-Stream was in May. Our next one is coming up in October. We went to the Learning Fair in July. We were there for a day. We did an invasive species display. We've had 4 mobile boat washes as part of our invasive species program. 2 of them were in Jackson County. It's a tri-county area that we cover. We had 2 in Jackson County at Portage Lake. We did have a fair booth this year. Household hazardous waste collection, despite the loss of our county funding in 2021, I did apply for a Consumers Energy Foundation grant and received a small grant, and we were able to hold 1 small collection. We did it by appointments. We only had enough money for about 75 appointments. They were all filled within minutes or within days of the event going live. And we had hundreds of people calling after that, trying to get appointments that were unable to. So it just shows what a great need the hazardous waste program is in the county. We did have a countywide scrap tire collection. We filled 3 semi-trailers in about 3 hours. We had 13 people there. We had some staff board members, and then we had 7 volunteers, 5 of which were 2021 graduates of Lumen Christi. So that was kind of nice to have those young people there slinging the tires for us. 13 out of 19 of the county's townships have participated or have collections coming up next weekend. There's 2 collections coming up next weekend. So we'll probably collect close to 12,000 tires this year. We have an Adopt-A-Highway coming up in September. We've been doing a lot of invasive species surveying throughout the county for Japanese knotweed, mile-a-minute, and Japanese stiltgrass. We do have a knotweed problem here. We're trying to address that. We are working with, I think, Jackson County Parks, maybe the DOT as well, on some knotweed prevention. We did have a training seminar at the fairgrounds that for municipalities in Jackson. It was very well attended by the county. We've also done some lake surveys for European frogbit. We also did a training video for invasive species, and we did some hazardous waste training to keep all our employees up to speed on how to handle hazardous waste. We had all the same grants that we've had for the past few years. We did add the grant from the Consumers Energy Foundation, and we also received a rural electronics recycling collection grant with Recycling Jackson. That'll go through 2022, and we'll have 2 electronics collections, and we'll also be building them a new barn to store some of their products. Due to the decreased funding, a recycling coordinator was able to update the recycling guide and applied for some grants, but we had to cut back on education and outreach, which is actually a good year to do it because we weren't allowed in any schools anyway. Some grant opportunities that are coming up. We are applying for another scrap tire grant, and we're going to renew our invasive species grant, and then I will be applying for some local foundation grants as well to expand the hazardous waste program. Some funding opportunities. It's actually a pretty big deal. In 2009, we lost all our state funding, and MACD, which is the Michigan Association of Conservation Districts, has been fighting since to get it back, and we actually might be getting some back. Actually, I think they might be voting on it this week, maybe tomorrow, is what Sarah Leitner told me. It looks promising that we will get something back from the state. It's not anything substantial, but any dollar amount is substantial to a conservation district, so maybe I'll get a raise after, 13 years or so. Anyway, and I'll be able to get some of my hours back if we do get that funding. County funding, I'm sure some of you know, I keep bothering you all, and I will continue to. That's just what I do. Hopefully that will pan out, and maybe we can get some county funding back for our program, our hazardous waste program. And I've also been in talks with the townships to maybe get a small amount from each township to help us expand that program as well. A couple things coming up. We have well water screening event for nitrites and nitrates today or tomorrow and Thursday at the Conservation District office. It's just for well water screening. We have an Adopt-A-Highway and Adopt-A-Stream coming up, and hopefully our annual dinner will be in person this year. And like I said before, we have started a tree sale for next year. And really quick, I'm supposed to throw out these numbers at you. The Conservation District works very closely with our the federal government, the NRCS, where we're in their office. We do stuff for them, and they let us be in their office for free. And I need to tell you that with our help, NRCS has brought in almost $1.4 million to Jackson County farmers and landowners for the 2021 year seasons in some of their EQIP and their Environmental Equality Incentives Program and their Conservation Stewardship Program and their Wetland Reserve Easements Program that's in 2 years. So I just thought I'd throw those numbers out at you. Do you have any questions?
With the well water sampling, and my question is kind of like this. So many agricultural applications right now that are going on are injecting nitrogen into the irrigation water to be applied to the crops. This is kind of a process that goes on to right now, like there's been a few of them that have been doing it to finish off the corn and the beans and things as they finish their life cycle for harvesting. Who monitors that?
I know we have programs to prevent all of that. We have a MEP technician it's considered a groundwater stewardship technician that can go to farms, test your soils, make sure that you're not over-applying any kind of chemicals. So we do have a program for that. I'm not sure, it's a voluntary program, so some farmers don't want to do that. There's also programs through the NRCS that helps you regulate how much stuff you're putting on, and like filter strips to keep things from running off into ditches or groundwater, etc. So there are programs, but we don't monitor individual farms for those levels.
Well, my question is that I know for a fact that there's been some times when there's been equipment malfunction, and the wells are typically set up so that if there's a line break or something happens and the pressure drops, the well shuts off, but there's no safety on the injection of these chemicals, and they typically go right down the well. The wells are most of the time in the sandstone aquifer, which supplies a lot of municipalities, and they're typically around 400 feet deep, along with many of the municipalities, like for example the village of Grass Lake. Their municipal water system is in the 400 foot in the sandstone aquifer. And I was kind of curious to see if, in fact, we were a part of the wellhead protection program around Jackson County. And I was wondering how these particular irrigation wells got monitored for safety and backflow prevention and other such methods of the safety of our municipalities and who all uses that water.
Okay, I don't have a huge answer for you because I'm not the expert on any of that. I know we've done well water protection in the past with the Upper Grand River Watershed Alliance. And as far as we do like well closures and stuff like that with some of our technicians, I can have somebody contact you with maybe a better answer through the NRCS or my MEP technician, my groundwater stewardship technician. They might be able to give you a better answer if you want me to do that. I'm not going to give you an answer that's wrong, so I'm just not going to give you a very good answer at all.
I would appreciate
I'd rather
a follow-up.
Okay.
And I know that there's been abandoned wells from different agricultural applications that haven't been abandoned correctly.
Okay?
I just need to have somebody, and it sounds like your agency is the one, to
Yeah, it
follow
might
up.
be. I'll see what I can do. I will, Jeremiah Swain is my MEP technician, so I can give him your information and have him contact you.
Thank you.
And I'll have him work with Jeff too and see if, there's something together that they can help you with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a question on your well water screening event.
Yes?
If your sample shows that you do have nitrates or nitrites in your water, what do you do about it?
Basically, we give recommendations what to do about it. It's a very simple test. You just bring in a bottle of water and we just do a quick little litmus test on it and then we'll give you information on how to correct it. We don't have the authority, the money, or anything to go out there and do anything for you, but we can tell you, we can give you information on how to correct it.
Thank you.
Maybe that's not a great answer either, but yeah, there's no funding for us to go do anything beyond that, except to tell you that it's an issue.
Well, if you detect nitrates or nitrites, you don't give the homeowner a notice, you may no longer drink this water and...
Well, I mean, nitrites and it depends on what you have. I know some of them, if you have a low enough, I don't know, I'm not an expert at all on this. Like, I have people that are experts on this in my office, but I know like it can be dangerous to older people and pregnant women and stuff. So obviously if you have that, it's, we tell them, I mean, when they get their little pamphlet or whatever that we hand them, then they know not to drink it or, follow that protocol.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Sell.
Hi. Being a realtor, we do this a lot. We have wells tested and residential and that's usually handled by the health department, or county health department. And I think the same goes for well abandonment. Now that's residential. I don't know if that would go over to agricultural land, but they may be able to be a resource also.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, I need a motion to send Lori's report to the full board.
So moved.
Okay, motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lori. Next up, we have the treasurer. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so I've got a couple items today to present and talk about. The first item that we'll be talking about is the packet that talks about the 2022 delinquent tax note borrowing. This is the resolution that needs to come before the board for approval as a precautionary measure. If we determine at some later point with the finance director, myself, and I will look at where we are with our tax collection, where the delinquent tax revolving fund is, and determine whether or not we need to do the borrowing for next year. So we need to put the resolution before the board prior to that so that when we do determine, when and if we determine that we need to borrow, we have the resolution ready to go. And then the process can begin again. As you recall, we borrowed for the first time last year, so this resolution is boilerplate language. It's the same resolution that was presented before the board last year. The only thing that's changed is the years. So we're still looking around 12 million to borrow. That's our standard. Typically the amount that we end up needing to pay out for the taxes from all of the local jurisdictions. And that hasn't changed since we began this process. So if there's any questions with regard to this, again, it's just a precautionary measure. We may look to borrow, we may not. But when and if we make that determination, I definitely will notify the board, and then the process will begin.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr. Chair.
well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the recommendation of the resolution to the full board, and then I have a question if I can get support.
I'll support that.
Okay, we have a motion.
Madam Treasurer, say it's $12 million. That's kind of the estimate. Did we have to borrow this year, and if so, how much, just kind of ballpark, how much did we borrow?
So this year, we borrowed 10 million because our collections were so good, which is a good thing to talk about. So our collections were definitely up. That decreased that number to 10 million, and that's what we ended up borrowing this past, I think it finished in May. And so I'd like to think we'd be close to 10 million, but we'll know better when we get after that March 1st.
But we
deadline.
give you the authorization in case you do need to get up
Correct.
that high. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the questions.
Okay, any further questions? We already have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
Okay, so on to my second report. This is my quarterly report to you. It's just information and an opportunity for you and I to have a conversation, or if you've got questions about what's going on in the treasurer's office. So I sent this packet out September 1st, so hopefully you've all had a chance to review it. And first off, did every one of you receive one of these little booklets in your mailbox? I dropped it off a couple weeks ago. I put them in your mailbox. I had Delane put them in your mailbox. Okay, so what this is a wonderful little brochure that the Michigan Association of County Treasurers, so it's our statewide association, put together as a wonderful resource about tax foreclosure in the state of Michigan. It also talks about, I believe, well, it's more general than anything, but it talks about facts and myths, talks about terminology and what the county treasurers do in their communities and what have you. So it's a nice brochure when you're talking with your constituents who have any questions regarding what the tax foreclosure process entails. So I want to make sure you knew that was available. And then also, part of the packet, I wanted to spend just a minute to talk about the tax foreclosure timeline. This is a nice pictograph that talks about the process. It's busy, but there's a lot that's going on with it. But if you take the time to walk through the process, it highlights our 25-month plus now process. And on the back side, it talks about the statutes, the MCLs, the MCL 211, which basically governs all of the functions that we do through the tax foreclosure process. So this is a nice diagram for you as well. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware that those were available for you. Okay, so the monthly investment reports are available. They're posted on the treasurer's webpage. There's really not a whole lot of activity going on with our investment portfolio. We're in a holding pattern with regard to any investment of surplus proceeds, as you should be aware because I've shared that with you. In light of what's happened recently with county treasurers statewide and the Raffaele case, there is concern that county treasurers may have to pay back excess proceeds and funds to those that we've foreclosed on in the past, and this is statewide. So you marry that with the fact that we've had some difficulties and challenges in our economy. My investment portfolio, the county portfolio, kind of took a hit last year with regard to all of our holdings being called away. So we've got a lot of cash on hand, and we're holding those dollars in anticipation of some litigation matters that are still pending. So I think I've shared that with you all before, no surprise there, but so if the portfolio looks a little different, it's by design that it does. I feel that we need to have some money set aside in preparation for the worst case scenario. What that is, stay tuned. Unfortunately, I don't have any control over that. None of the county treasurers statewide have control over that. It's in the hands of the court system right now. So, long story short there, but I wanted to give you a full picture with regard to that.
Karen,
Yes.
is there a statute or a good estimate on how far back the Raffaele decision applies?
We will talk about that. It's later on in my report, and I will make sure that I go into depth about that, okay? But let me get through the details of where we are right now, if you don't mind. Okay, so this cycle, we foreclosed on 76 parcels. In that packet, I gave you a nice graph that showed you the timeline from when the new PA 123 began in 1999 up until what we foreclosed on March 31st, and you will see that our numbers are down, and that is a good thing. 76 parcels, I think that puts us right around the 2008, 2009 time, so that's a good thing. Less foreclosures definitely has more of a positive impact, if you can say that, on our community. So we had our first tax foreclosure auction. August 20th, we presented 71 parcels for public consumption, and we sold 54. So we had a very successful auction. You'll see there the total dollars that we brought in from the auction and what we needed to recoup for reimbursement back to the tax delinquent tax revolving fund. We had less going to the auction because we had some local units of government that took those parcels under their first right of refusal. I've highlighted those entities, the City of Jackson, Blackman Township, Parma Township, and the county. Just for information, we did not do any evictions for any of the tax foreclosed properties. Again, this cycle, that is part and due to the federal eviction moratorium that's still ongoing. Okay, then, moving on, unless there's questions with regard to the first auction, our second auction is coming up. It's Friday, October 15th. We're going to be bringing the remaining 17 parcels to see if we can get those sold and back on the tax roll. Okay, so let's talk now about the new laws, Public Act 255 and 256, and how that impacts the new foreclosure process. So, after Raffaele's decision came down from the Supreme Court in July of 2020, County Treasurer statewide worked on working with the legislatures to try to find a process, create a process for how we now adjust the law to implement the decision made by the Supreme Court. We were successful in that, and this timeline is a result of that. So that has now been updated. There's a whole section that we added to MCL 211 that talks directly to how we handle the Raffaele decision. The Raffaele decision, fortunately, unfortunately, only addressed prospectivity, meaning that as of July 2020, it would only impact cases and/or people, taxpayers, that were foreclosed on going forward. It does not address any tax foreclosures that happened 2020 and back. And so we are still in a holding pattern with regard to that. So Raffaele, again, only addressed the prospectivity going forward. We have pending litigation all throughout the state, different cases that are in Sixth Circuit Court, some that are in the appeals court. Our association meets bi-weekly talking about the status updates of all these ongoing cases to determine the retroactivity and what that's going to look like, what the impact will be on our county and all the counties in the state of Michigan. So we have pending litigation in Jackson County. It's called the Fox case. I can tell you that it's still going through the court process, but we did get a new update that oral arguments are scheduled for October 28th. So until the courts have worked through our issue regarding the Fox case, as well as all the other cases, there's at least 5 or 6 cases. So it's not just the Fox case. There's other cases that are in this pending litigation, same issues. So no determination has been made. They're trying to consolidate the cases down, and we have been successful to some degree with regard to that. But until those cases work their way through the court systems, we do not have an answer with regard to how far back the tax foreclosure process and any excess proceeds will be impacted. So hopefully, Commissioner Duckham, that answered your question with regard to that. We're still holding.
Very well, thank you.
Unfortunately, but I will keep you updated as soon as any news breaks with regard to that. So that's a lot of information. Any questions with regard to that? Because this is new territory we're working through. Yes, Commissioner Plesky.
The Fox case is in, thank you. The Fox case is in, is it Jackson County Circuit Court? Or is it elsewhere?
No, Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals right now, yes.
Hey.
And it's Eastern District. So Fox originated, the plaintiff is actually from Saginaw, so there's a group of counties that are impacted. So Saginaw, I think, is the plaintiff in the Fox case, but Jackson is named, as well as...
Federal court.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
absolutely, yes. So I don't know, the Michigan Supreme Court may get involved, I don't know, again. So we'll see. Any other questions with regard to that? Hopefully, we've done a good job with our association and our attorneys that we are working with and the legislatures to give them a full picture as to the massive impact that this will have, not just on the locals, because it will have a very large ripple effect. It will be county government, it will be local government, it will be state. The state of Michigan is also a foreclosing governmental unit, so the state of Michigan will also be impacted by these decisions as well. So stay tuned with regard to that. Just a couple other updates, if you don't mind. I wanted to let everyone know, you probably already know this, apportionment 2021 is in the beginning stages. Lots of back and forth, and Mandak probably could update that as well regarding the date that we need to start the process. Census 2020, with the fact that it did not have a firm deadline, has kind of put a monkey wrench in when we start up the apportionment and getting the data as a result of the census. So our first meeting, our first organizational meeting is September 16th at 5:30. Just to remind you, this is a very important process. Make sure that your constituents know that this is an opportunity for their voices to be heard with regards to how we design and set up our government for us at the county level. So stay tuned with regard to that. And then lastly, I had an update with regard to the Mechanic Street property. I had an informational meeting with the EPA and Eagle on July 30th. Again, it's a lot of stops and starts with this project, this property. When you're working with state agencies and the federal government, I'm kind of taking their lead with regard to that, so it is what it is. They're still doing ongoing sampling at the property, so if you see activity going on there, it's probably Eagle, which is the state MDEQ now, that are doing ongoing sampling of, most recently, the standing water in the basement area of the site location. So they're doing their work, trying to collect their data. I'm allowing them access to do whatever they need to move this project forward, with the end goal, end game is to get the structures down. I've always said that from day one. They're a hazard, they're blight, they're dangerous, there's contaminated property, and we need to remove that and clean that up for the betterment of our community. I do have an update with regard to that. Let's see, September 8th, so just last week, the EPA has put out they started the process, they've done their press release regarding that site to be listed on the national priorities list. So what that means is you put it on the national priorities list, and they're also trying to get Superfund dollars for that site. So the process has begun. The EPA drives that process. The press release went out, and it's a 60-day comment period begins. That's for public to make comment with regard to that. And again, this is a relatively new process for myself. Commissioner Shotwell may have more experience with that with brownfield properties in the past, but we do the 60-day comment period and then move forward with EPA's process for getting that listing done and hopefully Superfund dollars. So it's good to see forward movement. We've got the EPA involved now at a higher level, which is good. So stay tuned with regard to that. Yes?
Thank you, Karen. What is the ultimate solution there at the Mechanic Street property? Is it just to have a vacant paved lot or grass lot, or how far is the cleanup going to go?
If you're asking me personally, I think the best use of that property is green space.
Okay.
It's right on the Grand River, so there's opportunities for development that way, but we've had lots of conversations and wish lists about what we want to see on that property, but I don't know if development is the best course of action for that.
Well, you can probably
But-
go down there to be lit at night.
Right. It would be nice to have a walkway down through there, but
I meant,
again, the priority has to be to remove the contaminated property
okay, thank
in
you.
the buildings. Yep. Any other questions I can answer? Please. Well,
Well, what time was that meeting for the public, for the report?
for apportionment,
Yeah,
5:30 PM.
and is it here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. You have in front of you a request to do some work here at the Tower Building to fix our masonry issues that we're experiencing. This was a tough task to solicit more than the number of quotes that we received. It certainly wasn't from lack of trying. And we're asking for permission to move this forward to the full board for approval.
Questions? Rodney?
Rick, you obviously got your architect, the Covell Group, which is familiar with this. Was there any other, who did you use or try to get quotes from?
We tried to get quotes from DC Buyers, from Lansing, Ram Construction of Kentwood, Michigan, and Boss Construction from Detroit, Michigan.
Did you try Borner Restoration?
We did not, but I haven't had the best of luck getting those folks to give us quotes.
Your architect is good. Jackson High experienced the same thing while I was the project manager guy for the restoration of there. Make sure that Jason uses stainless steel clips and it's redoing. But Borner did that one and they did a good job, but
I know we're really running into an issue of getting quotes. I've never seen anything like this before in my career.
right.
I mean, it's tough, and speaking about Jason, he was the one who had the idea about bringing in someone from the Michigan Masonry Institute to be that independent third-party person to make sure that we're doing everything the right way. And yeah, that's the thing, this building was constructed before we had stainless steel, so now everything we do, we want to bring stainless steel back into the mix.
Yeah, we did the same thing at Jackson High on the facade of that one as well.
Same era of construction.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Rod.
Any further questions? Okay, we had a motion, we need support? Oh, you didn't catch the motion? No. Need a motion and support to move this forward?
To recommend to.
Okay, we have a motion and support to send this to the full board. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next project, Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to have Derek Isley, our project manager, present this one to the board, or
Thank you.
the committee.
Okay, see your. Stopped right there. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
This one is in regards to this building, the Jackson County Tower Building, basement, sub-basement. The motion requested is approve the quote from Ayers Basement Systems of Lansing in the amount of $39,053 to install a crawl space water encapsulation system for the tower building sub-basement. We reached out for multiple bids and once again failed. We did have a couple of people visit, but only one that submitted a bid and then one no-show. So with the reputation of Ayers and their professionalism and being the lone bidder, I am requesting to push this toward the board.
Questions?
Move to recommend.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion on this? Mr. Kennedy?
Derek, I just recommend that you have your P's and Q's in order when you come to the meeting Tuesday night on those attempted quotes, who they were,
Roger that.
because I would anticipate somebody might ask that question. All right.
No problem.
Rodney?
Yes, the water table at that particular level, is that above the river or below the river?
Depends.
It truly does depend how much precipitation we've had. Our biggest issue, Rod, is when Pearl Street was redone, completely redone, I was told that's when we started getting water in our sub-basement here. The same thing happened to Dupuy Jewelers down the street and several other businesses around here. So I can say that the water table is right at the slab down in the boiler room. That's
And-
our first sub-basement. Then we have a sub-sub-basement, and then if you count our elevator shafts, we have sub-sub-sub-basements. It's crazy, it's just the way the building is built.
Next door in the parking structure is 2 levels of parking below grade. And there's 4 pumps in the lower structure that run continuously. Is the sub basement here a confined space?
It is. It's a small confined space, but nonetheless, it would meet that qualification. There's only one way in and one way out.
What's the air quality like? Has it been monitored?
We have not monitored it.
The only reason I ask this is because this bid's not enough money to do that right. And I think that there's something wrong here. Only because of the fact that I was involved with that one over there and know what's in play. I would question this bid to find out in detail what's involved and what they're gonna do. You guys are close to it, you're the experts, but this ain't enough money to do that job.
It's not as large of a space as the footprint of the building, because we have a lot of the basement that... We have a lot of the basement that is at grade, and we haven't had any issues there. It's just with the sub-basement, it's basically the boiler room, and we have a series of 3 pumps down there, and the reason I wasn't moving out of Derek's way is part of this quote, I believe, is to set how many pumps down there in the sub-basement
Where the stack is,
where the stack is.
that is technically, it's one pump, but I would like to share with you the manual actually from Ayers, very impressive literature. I can get that to you, but it's called their triple safe pump. In their world, it's everything we need down there. And when it comes to the 100% cure, you are correct, but it would be largely invasive, and it would treat it like any other building or even residential homes is digging up and going on the exterior for drain tiles and collecting water before it even gets in. And we know that's way too invasive and too costly, and nobody's going to be a fan of that. So in our world right now, it's basically stopping the bleeding. We need to dry that basement out, and this was the best way to at least stop it from ruining anything else down there. Mechanical-wise, air quality, anything that's touching the ground right now is at play. So this is our best way of at least stopping the bleeding and getting some repair done. And we're anxious to see what it looks like after they're done and monitor from there. We still will see some water infiltrate maybe through the walls, but at least right now we're collecting it and getting it out of here.
Agreed. My next question would be and you referred to the Pearl Street reconstruction, and the table or timeline that this has occurred. Was there something done, like a tile or something that was busted and not put back to play? I would be interested to see why we're all of a sudden having this problem.
I think our chances of finding that out are slim to none. It's a situation where it wasn't just the tower building. The same thing happened down at Dupuis, where all of a sudden he started having water come in the basement. And look at this, what Consumers has been doing out here with their electrical vaults. My gosh, it's been, look at our alley and our parking lot where they've gone through, they're trying to address all the issues there from water infiltration. That's why we had the water in our basement tested. I wanted to see if we had an issue with fluoride or chlorine, because I thought maybe it was an issue where we had a water main that may have been broken. And as far as stormwater goes, I haven't noticed any issues during the heavy rains that we have, nothing gurgling up from any of the manhole structures. So I really think it's just a water table issue that we're up against.
Is there discharge lines that are currently involved, and where do they go?
There are discharge lines, and they go to Pearl Street.
Are those lines clear and open?
To the best of our knowledge, they are. Did you have a camera run down those?
For here?
Yeah.
Not since I've been here.
Okay.
I think we have, for the past 5 years, almost every building though. So I'm sure it's out there.
I haven't had any anything to make us believe that we have an issue with a clogged drain, because our water does pump out of here without any issues. It's not, and we have check valves, so the only thing I could do is have M&K come in and run their cameras. But we've had the drains here jetted, thinking that we may have had some issues, but that wasn't the case.
Okay,
Good questions.
I try to make them that way.
You were in the business for a long time.
Good morning. This encapsulation system, as I understand it, they're basically putting down a drainage mat, pouring a new concrete floor over it. So you'll be walking on the new, hopefully dry concrete floor, but the water infiltration will still be flowing through the mat, the drainage mat, and that'll have to go to your sumps. With the constant water moving through the concrete, it used to be very common in concrete, and this building's been there a long time, to put lime in the concrete along with the Portland cement. Well, Portland cement, after it sets up, it's permanent. It gets stronger with age. The lime, you'll get an initial set in your concrete, but then the lime is redissolved as water passes through the concrete. So if you get a little crack, a little bit of water comes in, it'll dissolve the lime and it will literally remove the lime. So what started out as a small crack is now a little bit bigger crack. So more water can get in, more water can dissolve more lime, and that lime gets moved out and you got a bigger crack. So if you can do a test on the concrete to see what percentage of lime content there is, if you don't do something to replace the lime that's being leached out, your problem's just going to get continually worse as more lime gets leached out and you get bigger gaps. There's products out there that will, one product, Zypex, can be surface applied, and when it comes in contact with water, it grows crystals into the crack. So there are products that will slowly fill your cracks that have been caused by the lime removal. Have you had any time to look at that at all?
I personally am not, but as I was mentioning, we almost need to start with one section and basically isolate where our issues are coming from. And like I was saying, there are a couple pinhole size holes in the foundation walls here where we know it's also coming in, so this will not be the end of our problem, but this is definitely a good first step. But I absolutely am anxious to look into that as
So you
well.
will continue to monitor the amount of water coming through. If you've got pinhole size openings,
Correct, we're going to have to address that. And
if you can record their location and measure them, that will allow you to tell a year from now is the hole same size or has actually gotten bigger. So you've got to, appears to me you're going to need a continuous monitoring plan along with this Band-Aid you're putting on now.
Correct.
Okay.
And then to add to what we were talking about earlier, some of the story I've got from construction in town in the past was basically as a city, we tried to fight Mother Nature. I was told we've tried to reroute the Grand River back in the day to put this town here, and over the years it's wanting to come back to its natural path. So that also affects some of these foundations and areas. Did some work at the Innovation Center a few years ago, and they had the river was flowing right underneath the elevator shaft. So this is not, we're not the only ones, as Rick was saying. So we're going to fight.
And the nice thing too, Tony, is we have our as-built for this building, and they specifically called out for specific concrete mixes for not only the floor, but the foundations and the 33 caissons that this building is set on. So we do have that information. I just don't have it committed to memory. Welcome, sir.
Okay, any further questions? If not, it's time for a motion and support. Decide what we're going to do here. All right, and time to vote. All in favor of sending this to the full board? Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Next up, item H, HR Department. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning. I'm here today to ask for a approval to go before the full committee for a budget allocation increase to transition the Assistant County Administrator from pay grade R to pay grade S in accordance with the board-approved non-union pay rate schedule, and we would look to have that effective Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. So that's what we're asking for. A little background, the Human Resource Department, we received a 2021 compensation study from the Ottawa County. And with that study, we discovered that the Assistant County Administrator is paid 13% below the average of 13 different counties, peer counties. So with that, that is significant. That is in coordination with what our policy is to review on an ongoing basis the compensation of specific positions. So we're trying to rectify that at this point. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Ray, you don't have a question? Okay, we have a motion and support. Go ahead, Commissioner Pulaski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think the study only buttresses my view that we've given Deborah more responsibility, and she's handled it admirably, and that alone would have been enough for me to be convinced of the need for this improvement. So thank you for the study as well.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we didn't conduct the study. We'll be coming forward to request a study. We should be trying to do that every 5 years, and it's time for us to be approving that. Probably next year we'll come before you again and try to look at our own study again. But this will not be the first one. This is one of about 3 or 4 that are significantly below industry standard. So in the coming months, we will be trying to address these one by one.
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, if not, we have our motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to item I, Finance. Welcome, Cecilia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm here to ask the board to, the committee to review the budget amendments and then go ahead and push it to the full board for approval. This is just our mid-year review of our budget, where we're just kind of looking at revenues and expenses and adjust them as we need to. Are there any questions?
Questions? If not, we need a motion support to adjust our budget.
I've got a question, Mr. Chair.
Have a motion and support on the table. Go ahead, Mr. Pulaski.
We're recommending this to the full board then, is that correct? Just kind of procedural perspective? Is that right?
It's based on the dollar amount.
Yeah, okay. That's the only question I have. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. All in favor of sending this to full board indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Cecilia. And another item up here, our monthly report.
Yep. So what you have in front of you is our July financial statements. And again, our July year-to-date is below our benchmarks. Our expenditures are 55.8%. The benchmark is 58.3%. And our revenues are coming as we expected. So budget-wise, as of right now for 2021, we look good.
Good.
Are there any questions on the financial report at all? I don't have any concerns, so.
Got a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Plasko.
The budget numbers that are noted here are as they currently exist before the amendments we just worked on? Okay,
Yes,
just
I
make
have
sure.
to get you guys to approve before I do anything.
Just want to make sure I'm looking at the right numbers.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No problem,
Good
thank you.
report. Let me send on to the full board. Parks, Lime Lake County Park Playground purchase. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my first item is a request for a new playground at Lime Lake County Park. So this is our fourth playground since we've had millage funding available, and we took kind of the same approach where we give all the major playground companies a budget and the dimensions, and we ask them to design something that fits into that scope. So recommending Snyder Recreation. This is quite the upgrade. I included some pictures of the existing equipment there, so this is something that I know the Spring Arbor Township folks are excited about, and this was approved by the Park Board last week.
Hey, Commissioner Pulaski.
I'd like to move the adoption.
Okay, we have a motion and support to approve as presented. That'd be, the amount of purchase is $33,410. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I saw that the budget was not to exceed $35,000. How much is going to cost to remove the equipment that's already there and prepare the site?
Well, we do that internally with our own staff, so it's just some staff labor basically, but that budget was what we gave the playground companies, the $35,000, so we didn't factor in the removal, but it's just staff time that we already have the staff to do it basically.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and support.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and support on the board, on the table. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Next up, parks, parking lot and drive improvements, item L.
Yeah, essentially we had some funding in our capital budget this year for some asphalt repairs. We analyzed our whole park system, tried to prioritize where this could go the furthest with the most need for improvements. Basically, we worked with JC Dot. This is some work that they'll be doing. Working with JC Dot, they determined this is work that they can do cheaper than contracting it out and more time efficient, basically. So we're recommending some work at Vandercook Lake, Pleasant Lake County Park. There's some Falling Waters Trail repairs there, and some golf course parking lot repairs. So some of this is some millage funding. The golf course repairs will be paid for by the fund balance of the golf course. But again, some pictures of existing conditions. Some of these areas are in pretty rough shape, so it'll be, again, quite the upgrade. And again, approved last week at the Park Board.
Okay, motion by Snell, supported by Pulaski. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you. We have one more here. Item M, Cascades Park Trail improvements.
Yeah, so we're recommending to resurface the trail around the lagoons at Cascades Park. So this is something that we had in our capital plan for this year. We worked with JC Dot to put this out to bid, recommending the lower bid. This was a planned expense for this year. This does include a couple of portions of this trail we learned were put in by the city, basically, on county park property. So the part along Randolph, it's parallel to Randolph, and then the boardwalk in front of the splash pad on Brown Street. Those were actually constructed by the city back in the late 80s, early 90s. They had proposed earlier this summer they were going to actually remove those because they're kind of past their useful life, and they didn't have the funding to repair it. So the Park Board discussed it this summer. They would like to see those areas stay, the boardwalk and the trail system there. So We're recommending to take ownership of that portion along Randolph as well as the boardwalk, and then make repairs to the entire loop around the lagoons here.
Has there been anything, how are we going to track this 20 years from now that we've taken ownership of those after the city had taken ownership? How is that tracked?
Yeah, so we're working on an agreement with their attorney and our attorney to get that formalized.
Okay. Any further questions? Any questions at all? Any motion? Okay, motion by Snell, seconded by Pulaski. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Next up, IT. Welcome, Michelle.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. The first item I have for you is to update our expired Comcast Master Services Agreement. This was something that was included last week in study session in the IT6 project. I went ahead and split it out because it actually doesn't have, it shouldn't be connected with the project itself. It's just the Master Service Agreement needs to be updated, and I'm seeking approval to have that updated.
Discussion. We have a motion and support. All in favor of the agreement?
Thank you.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Move on to item O.
This is also from study session last week, just another, again, to review what we talked about is the internet services communications from Comcast provided to us that we wish to use ARPA funding for our services, upgrading the line speeds, bandwidth, also including cybersecurity increases, denial of service protection. If there was any other questions about that.
Questions? Motion.
I'll move to recommend to the full board adoption of IT 6.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Michelle, we're on item P now.
This also a review of a study session for IT project number 2. I did also want to mention, I forgot for the other one, but I did have the sales orders updated in the staff reports, so they were updated and they will be good for the duration of the month. There was some questions about the timing of expiration, so I just wanted to clarify that. This one has also been updated for the Keeley Park Fairgrounds Wi-Fi expansion. If there was any other questions on that?
Move to send it to the full board.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a good day.
Yes, we annually bring this to the board at this time. We asked all department heads to, review any and all fees because we believe it's important that one fee stay current and appropriate, and that the board see all fees annually. They do not all increase at any one time. I think there's only 2 in here that are changing, or recommended to change at least. Questions?
Health support. I guess I do have a question, though, Mr. Chair. Thank you. This is a question for the administrator, I suppose. I see one of the charges that's to increase is with respect to the sheriff's office. The labor is going from $20.26 an hour with respect to certain services there to almost $44 an hour. I guess I don't question the fact that might be the cost. It seems to me it must have been a very long time since we've adjusted that fee.
I'm not sure how long it's been, but I would tell you that falls under a FOIA, and you can charge the lowest paid employee who can do that type of work. In fact, we're required to do that. So it must have been a change. I haven't spoken to the sheriff directly about that, But my guess is that they've come to find out that the employee doing that work is no longer available or cannot do that work successfully, and they've identified, obviously, a higher paid employee who has to do that work.
Those are all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Moving on to committee member comments. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Got to keep you guys in line, Amanda does.
Yeah.
I have extra. Did you find?
More coffee. I got in at 11 o'clock last night. Got home at 1.